Next one. We got foreclosure. Let's say the property goes into foreclosure while you're trying to work with the bank or short sale, negotiate a return or short sale. The property goes into foreclosure. Well, that foreclosure attorney is getting paid to do two things: get ownership back for his client and come up with a deficiency balance of what's owed on the promissory note. In other words, what you still owe on the property. So they want the property back and they want the judgment against you for money. That's a hard one, because now if you're trying to short sale the property, you got two things running simultaneously. And usually the bank's not talking to each other. So while you're trying to short sell the property, they're still pushing ahead with the foreclosure over here. And it's unfortunately never the twain shall meet, because one's going faster than the other, or, luckily we're able to resolve a lot of these short sales before the foreclosure judgment happens, but sometimes not always. All that tells me is the banks really aren't paying attention, and they think they're going to get a better deal in foreclosure than they would in the short sale. It's irrelevant. What's going to happen is, if there's a money judgment against the client, our clients are going to have to deal with it. Which brings you to the third option, bankruptcy. Now, bankruptcy is good depending on your financial situation. If you have a lot of other debts that you need to resolve and give away the house, bankruptcy may be your best option, because bankruptcy is going to take care of the debt. It's going to eliminate it. There's going to be no tax liability. Whenever you discharge a debt in a bankruptcy, there is no tax issues, because the debt has been discharged, period. End of story. However, a lien survives bankruptcy. Now, what is a lien? A lien is basically what that creditor has to secure its collateral. In other words, when you buy a house, that creditor is going to hold back ties to that house, because if you don't pay them, they want their collateral back. That's a lien. A lien says, hey, I've got an interest in this house, judge, and I'm not going to let it go. I'm not going to voluntarily waive it, because if I waive it, my debt is no longer secured. Now it's unsecured, and I'm the same thing as a credit card company or a gas card or somebody else. I have no collateral securing my debt. So obviously they want to retain their lien. Bankruptcy doesn't affect the lien. Bankruptcy keeps the lien on it. So here's what we're seeing now. Let's say, as a perfect example, I had a gentleman who I represented who had a property he bought in Lehigh Acres. He filed bankruptcy. Despite all of our efforts, the bank would not foreclose on this property. We can't unilaterally give it back. I can't sign a quitclaim deed and say, here you go, bank, because they don't have to accept it. The problem was this house fell into disrepair. A lot of bad things happened to it, vandalism, it got flooded, it was just a nightmare. The client didn't want it in his name anymore, but the bank wouldn't foreclose. That's a problem. So in essence, what's the mechanism? Unfortunately, in our system of society, there's nothing we can do to force them to take this house back. So after quite a few negotiations and maybe threats of lawsuits, the bank decided to take the property back. But it took a while. That's not normal. Normally the banks are foreclosing, they're taking the properties back, but there's a lot of houses on the market, or a lot of foreclosures, where the banks aren't moving too fast to get these properties back. So now we talked about deed in lieu of foreclosure, talked about short sale, talked about foreclosure, we talked about bankruptcy. And of course you can always negotiate a settlement on your own with them if you wanted to. Sometimes clients have to sign a promissory note and pay some money because they're not good candidates for bankruptcy, or because they have other assets and we want to work out a deal with them. Ultimately though, it's better to get the property out of your name and negotiate the debt, rather than leave things open, like how much am I going to owe you after you take this house in foreclosure and sell it? How much am I going to owe you in the future? That's always a big, big problem. Or when you're dealing with like an investment property, and there's going to be tax liability, there's going to be tax questions, because the house goes through foreclosure, the bank takes it, sells it, they set off the amount that they get for the house, but you're still 100 grand upside down. That $100,000 may come to you in the form of a 1099, and then you're going to be your CPA's best friend, because you're going to be in their office all the time saying, how do I deal with this problem? So hopefully that gives everybody a little bit of insight as to which options are available if you want to walk away from a house, and what you can do to help yourself, basically educate yourself about each process, so that going into it you know your full range of options, but you're not going to have a good result unless you're talking to an attorney who understands each option and how it can affect you. And that's really important. That's what I get because, in our office, we are set up to handle each specific option. And I know there's some attorneys out there who are just bankruptcy attorneys. So you may get just the bankruptcy option as opposed to all of your options. And if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. I've talked to many people who walk in my office and say, Carmen, I need to file bankruptcy. I need to get rid of this house. And I look at their individual circumstance and I say, no, you don't. Bankruptcy is the worst thing you could ever do. You need to do a short sale. Or you need to let this house go into foreclosure. And they're like, why? Because you're going to get a better deal that way. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Or I didn't think that was a good option. So folks, the bottom line is if you're having a problem like this, you need to explore all of your options. Everything's on the table. Slowly you can eliminate one after the other after you go through an analysis, you reasonably put your ducks in a row, and you say, now which one is the best option for me? And many people come in, they think the best option is a short sale when it would probably be a bankruptcy because they have $100,000 in credit card debt. Or they've had 2 repossessions and the creditors are coming after them trying to garnish wages. There's a lot out there, so I don't want you to pigeonhole yourself to one thing or the other. If somebody's telling you you need to do X, Y, and Z, take a step back, say, okay, maybe I do. However, I want to explore my options.